system. So kindly study the chapter in the textbook. Pay attention to all the end of the chapter review questions. Watch the videos that's posted with the chapter. So the main learning objective is to, just like any other system, you should master the anatomy and physiology of the urinary system. You cannot live without both your kidneys. You need at least one to survive. So we'll study the main components of the urinary system, the different structures and the physiology of it. We'll study the location of your kidneys and the main blood flow through your kidneys. We'll study the basic unit that make up a kidney is called as a nephron. So the cells that make up the kidney, for its function, main function would be a nephron. That's why the word nephrologist. Anything like starting with renal is also something to do with the kidney. So we'll study how a nephron works. And then the main objective is to clean blood plasma and to make urine, to get rid of all the metabolic waste. So we'll see how urine is formed in different parts of the nephron. And we'll end with how urine is analyzed and how it's a huge diagnostic tool. See, anytime the doctor doesn't know what is wrong when you go to the hospital, one of the first things they'll do is a blood test and a urine test, because it can reflect most of the disorders that's happening in the body. If they suspect you're on recreational drugs, the urine analysis will show you kidneys, kidney stones, urinary tract infections, or cancer. Everything can be indicated. Diabetes also through urine analysis. I just thought I'll show you this picture. So the picture here is showing how water is treated. So if you go to Bondi Island near Springfield, they would take sewage water, and then as it goes through a series of tanks like this, they are filtered, and what's coming out is clean. So it's like a filtration system to get rid of all the toxins. That's what your urinary system is. It's a system designed to get rid of all the metabolic toxins in our body. I was reading the statistic that like in every 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, all the blood in your body will visit the kidneys to be purified. So this picture is very interesting. That shows how the urinary system works hand in hand with all the other body systems you've studied. For example, it works with the integumentary system. So both of them will compensate for water loss by sweating or urination, right? And both of them have a role to play in vitamin D synthesis. How does it work with the muscular system? It will work with the muscular system, but getting rid of all the metabolic waste that's found during muscle contraction, like creatinine. So all the other systems of the body overlap with the urinary system. So if there is any kind of backup or blockage in the urinary system, all the other systems will be affected too. So let's look at the basic functions of the urinary system. It's classified under 3 main points. The main thing is excretion and elimination of organic waste. So some of the byproducts of metabolism are nitrogenous waste. Like if you remember, DNA and RNA have a lot of nitrogenous bases in it. So and also creatinine, that's waste produced in the muscles, or urea and uric acid. So they are all metabolic waste. So these have to be eliminated from the body. By doing this function, that leads into the homeostatic regulation of blood plasma. So it plays a huge role in maintaining your blood pressure and blood volume, all the electrolyte concentrations in the blood. We have to maintain the blood pH, between around 7.4. So your urinary system is going to play a huge role in the homeostatic regulation of all the blood electrolytes, nutrients, and pH. The kidneys also are responsible for making some hormones. Calcitriol is very important for calcium homeostasis, and erythropoietin triggers the production of red blood cells. So if you study the chemistry of urine, it's mostly water with 5% solutes, 95% water solutes. It has all the nitrogenous waste like urea, ammonia, uric acid, and creatinine. It is also plays a huge role in the homeostasis of electrolytes. So it'll also have sodium, potassium, phosphate, sulfates, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, that is very important for pH balance of your blood. So that's why urine test is a huge diagnostic tool, because it can reflect any pathology that's happening in your body. So let's look at the kidneys. So here, there's a picture of your kidneys. So the kidneys are responsible for cleaning up the blood plasma and making the urine. So we have two kidneys found on either side of the vertebra. Anytime they describe the location of the kidneys, they will call it retroperitoneal. That means it's located posterior to the abdominal cavity, behind the peritoneum. So that's why, if you remember, when we did dissection of the fetal pig, many of the students could not find the kidneys. It was like behind the abdominal, the peritoneum in the back. So we make about 1.3 to 1.4 liters of urine every day. The other organs would be the ureters. See, this is the tube, which will transport the urine to the urinary bladder. So urine will be squeezed down this tube by peristaltic movements to the urinary bladder. So this is where we would temporarily store the urine until we are ready to urinate. And then urethra is the small tube. It's larger in males, that will conduct the urine to the exterior of the body. The act of urination is called micturition. So these are the 4 organs of the urinary system. So let's look at more of the anatomy of the kidneys. So the vertebrae is right in the center, and we can see the left kidney and the right kidney on either side of the vertebral column. And it's very interesting to note, because it's going to purify blood. See, it's right. What the first, this is the aorta, right? Thoracic aorta, and you can see the renal artery entering the kidneys. So it's right next to the main branch of your blood supply. And you can see that the left kidney is slightly higher compared to the right kidney. They'll call it left kidney is retroperitoneal, both of them, and this is superior. So they are between T12 and L3 vertebrae here. And on top of the kidney, you can see a triangular, the adrenal gland that you studied earlier, the suprarenal gland. And the kidneys are held in position by the peritoneum, and also by some fascia and fat that connected with the adjacent organs. It's about 10 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide, about 150 grams in weight, and the point of entry of the main artery. So you can see the left renal artery, left renal vein. So the point of entry has an indentation. So that is called hilus. So it looks like your red kidney bean. That's why it's called kidneys. So how is the kidney kept in place, and how is it protected? There are 3 structures that protect a kidney. Here's a nice healthy kidney here, and you can see this collagen-rich fibrous capsule, a connective tissue that is protecting it. And then here in this cross section, see here you can see the vertebrae, and you can see that the kidneys are very close to the vertebrae. You can see this pancreas, spleen, and the stomach here. And you can see the artery and vein entering the kidney at the hilus. So it is protected by a fibrous capsule. It is also protected by a nice thick layer of fat. So you can see the adipose tissue that is insulating it and protecting it, because it's such a precious, delicate organ. And you can also see fascia. See the fascia? It is a dense fibrous connective tissue that will anchor the kidney to the neighboring organs. So 3 things: fibrous capsule, the fat, and the fascia are protecting the kidneys and keeping it in place. It's stabilized in place. So let's do a cross section of the kidney. Let's find out what's inside the kidney. So this is the most important picture here. I hope this is very important for your lab practical. So you can see the kidney is called kidney because it looks like a red kidney bean, the shape. So it has a cortex. See, the outer rind of the kidney is called as the renal cortex. The inner region where you see all these pyramids is called as the medulla. The internal cavity is called as the renal sinus. So regarding these pyramids that you're seeing in the medulla, this can vary from 6 to 18 per individual. So we have the renal cortex. First, there's a renal corpuscle on the outside, like the fibrous capsule. Then it's the cortex. Then it's the medulla with the renal pyramids. And then the cortical tissue in between the pyramids are called renal columns. So these are all renal columns. So other things is, see this, each renal pyramid along with the column and the cortex is called as one kidney lobule. And then there's hundreds and there's about like 1.2 million nephrons, cells that make urine in each kidney. So as the urine is made, it will decant into the renal papilla. So many minor renal papilla, and then the region where it receives the urine is called as the minor calyx. Several minor calyxes will come together to form the major calyx. All the major calyxes will run into to form this funnel-shaped structure called renal pelvis. So the urine is made here. It will drip into the renal papilla, into the minor calyx, major calyx, renal pelvis. So here we are talking, this is about the blood flow. So blood enters the kidney, it gets purified in the nephrons, and clean blood is going to leave through the renal vein. So this is the overall idea here. So let's look at the blood supply. The renal artery is going to enter the kidney. It is going to divide between the lobes. It's going between the lobes, right? So that is called interlobar arteries. So these are all interlobar arteries. Then it goes around the pyramid. It's called arcuate artery. Then it will radiate out. So it's called cortical radiate artery. So here's the picture, closer picture. So you can see the interlobar artery becoming the arcuate artery. Then it becomes cortico-radiate artery. So it's the cortico-radiate artery will have these tight capillaries in a structure called glomerulus, which is a huge part of filtration. So when you think about the blood flow in the kidneys, here's a basic picture. From the renal arteries, it goes to the segmental arteries. Oh, the first branching is called segmental arteries. Then when it goes between the lobes, it's interlobal arteries. Arcuate is the one that goes around the lobe. Then these are radiating out in the cortex. So it's called cortical radiate arteries. Then those will form the capillary knots or afferent arterioles. It's found in a structure called glomerulus, and clean blood will leave through the afferent arteriole, peritubular capillaries, venules, cortical radiate vein, arcuate vein, interlobar vein, and then it becomes the renal vein. So this is the pathway of blood through the kidneys. So how many, the cells that make the kidneys and which are responsible for making the urine is called nephrons. And there's like millions of nephrons in each kidney, 1.25 to 1.4 million nephrons per kidney. Each nephron is made up of a long tube, and that's what you'll be studying about in the future slides. So it will have something called renal corpuscle. So this is the renal corpuscle, or it's also called as the Bowman's capsule, named after the scientist who discovered it. That's the Bowman's capsule, and this is where the capillary knot is. The knot of capillaries will be found inside the capsule. It's a cup-shaped structure. It's also called as the glomerulus. So each glomerulus will have at least 50 capillaries in them, and the main function of the glomerulus is blood filtration. So this filtration happens because of blood pressure. So blood actually squirts into these capillaries at high pressure and volume. So everything will leave from the blood into the the capsular space here. So here is a picture of a nephron. So here is the glomerulus. So this picture is showing how the different parts of the nephron is made of different types of tissue. So here the glomerular, the renal corpuscle, it's also called glomerulus. So this here, this is mostly filtration is happening here. So the cells that make up this part is squamous cells. Simple squamous cell, so that it can filter quickly. The first convoluted tube is called, it's very close to the glomerulus, so it's called proximal convoluted tube, and it is made up of cuboid cells with a lot of microvilli. So because this part will play a huge role in reabsorption of most of the nutrients. So the liquid that stays in the tube or peritubular fluid will actually become urine. So we can't afford to have nutrients or glucose or amino acids here. So your body will reabsorb most of it. So when it goes out, when it's thrown out, the blood capillaries will be here. So they will absorb it. And then there's this interesting structure called loop of Henle, named after the scientist. So this is the descending loop of Henle, ascending loop of Henle. The descending loop is made up of simple squamous epithelium. Ascending loop is made up of cuboidal cells. And then comes the distal convoluted tube. This will play a huge role in secretion. So this is where all the toxins and drugs that the patient has ingested will be thrown in the urine, and it will end up being excreted. So here it is made up of cuboidal cells, but with little microvilli. So the three main steps of urine production is filtration that happens in the glomerulus, reabsorption that happens in the PCT, reabsorption of water here, sodium and chloride will be here. So reabsorption is happening here too. And secretion of toxins and metabolic waste is predominant in the distal convoluted tube. So we'll look at this in detail now. So this picture is very important. So how does a nephron clean up blood plasma? There's this analogy that comes to mind. Have you ever cleaned your refrigerator? See, anytime we want to clean the refrigerator, it all starts with first pulling out everything from the refrigerator. Remove everything from the refrigerator, put it on the countertop, clean the refrigerator, and put back only the good stuff. So we throw out all the expired stuff or any moldy stuff that's in the fridge, right? You clean the fridge and you put back only the good things. That's kind of exactly what's happening. So the afferent arteriole that comes in through, because of high blood pressure and blood volume, is going to squirt out all the blood plasma except for the proteins and RBCs. So everything comes out. So if there is no reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tube, it can end up as in the urine, right? But we can't afford to do that. So what happens is, first, just like cleaning the refrigerator, push everything out first. And then you reabsorb things that you need, like glucose, water, organic nutrients, and ions are reabsorbed in this spot. In the descending loop of Henle, water will be reabsorbed. In the ascending loop of Henle, sodium and chloride ions will be reabsorbed. In the distal convoluted tube, this is where we are going to secrete the toxins. So all the toxins and drugs that are hanging around in your body will stay here, and then it will be peed out as urine. Acids, drugs, toxins, it's written here. There's a little bit of absorption of sodium and calcium here. And then comes the last part. It's called as the collecting duct. So many nephrons will have one common collecting duct. So it's collecting the urine from many nephrons. So here there is variable reabsorption of sodium, bicarbonate, hydrogen, potassium ions. So this part plays a huge role in maintaining the pH of blood. If blood is very acidic, then it will throw out bicarbonate ions, trying to make the blood come to its 7.4 pH. If the blood is if very acidic, then it will expel the hydrogen. So this part plays a huge role in pH of blood. Most regions of the nephron perform a combination of function. Filtration in the glomerulus or the Bowman's capsule, nutrient reabsorption in PCT, and active secretion in DCT. And loop of Henle plays a huge role in reabsorption of water. If you are dehydrated, your urine is so concentrated, like how it's like thick and yellow in color. It's because your body is trying to maintain water homeostasis. So loop of Henle will be very active in reabsorbing the water. So let's look at what's happening in the renal corpuscle. So in the renal corpuscle, see, it's a knot of 50 capillaries and blood is squirting out in the space here, peritubular space. So how does the body accomplish that? So here is the glomerulus and blood is squirting here, and it's a capillary, a thin capillary, except for RBCs and big proteins. Everything enters the space here outside the capillary. This is lined with a special type of cell called podocyte. Podo means feet. So this single layer of cells has a lot of processes, like finger-like projections that will wrap around the capillaries. It is also called pedicels. So these feet will form filtration slits between them. So what happens is, it will keep the RBC and large proteins in the blood plasma, and all the other nutrients and ions will be squirted out in the capillary space outside. So almost like a sieve. Like when you're cooking, you would use a sieve after you cook your pasta. All the liquid go off and the pasta will be held in the sieve. It's kind of like that. So there is a special lining of cells called podocyte. They have these processes called pedicels that will make all these filtration slits that acts as a sieve, so that only the blood plasma squirts out, keeping the RBC and proteins inside. The amount of urine you make per minute is called as the glomerular filtration rate. So if you are a urologist or a nephrologist who's trying to study kidney function, this is a huge um, data for them to make the decisions. So we, on an average, we make about 125 ml of urine per minute. I'm always fascinated by this special cell and how filtration is accomplished in the kidneys. So another fascinating thing that happens is in the loop of Henle. See, the descending loop of Henle is thin compared to the ascending loop of Henle. So what happens, a very magical phenomena happens in the loop of Henle. See, the ascending loop of Henle, let's say you are dehydrated and your body needs to absorb more water. So what happens is the ascending loop of Henle will pump out sodium and chloride and potassium, and it forms a gradient here. See, 200, 400, 700. So it forms a gradient in this part of the medulla. So this gradient, anytime sodium is excreted, water will follow. So because if it's left in the tube, this is going to become urine and we are going to waste that water. So what happens is, because of this gradient caused in the ascending limb, water will leave from the descending limb. So it is countercurrent. So this phenomena is called as countercurrent multiplication system of the loop of Henle. Here it is, countercurrent multiplier system. Very interesting. So this is how the loop of Henle plays a huge role in maintaining water content in your blood. And here it's showing how many nephrons will drain into the collecting duct. And this collecting duct plays a huge role in maintaining blood pH. It is made up of cuboidal cells. So there are two types of nephrons. The nephrons that hang around in the, not hang around, which are found in the cortex is called as the cortical nephron. The loop of Henle is short. So 85% of the nephrons that we have are cortical nephrons. There is another nephron called juxtamedullary nephron, which is 15% of all your nephrons. This has a huge loop of Henle and it is found in the renal medulla. So each nephron has a tight supply of blood, because like once the nephron throws out the nutrients, it has to enter the blood supply. So the arteries that wrap itself around the PCT and DCT areas are called peritubular capillaries, and the capillaries that wrap around the loop of Henle is called vasa recta. So all the good stuff that the nephron throws out will be quickly absorbed in the this blood supply here. How is everything regulated? See, this renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system is very common. Like there are many drugs that will act on these three, on this hormonal system. So through a series of steps, our body is able to make angiotensin too. For example, angiotensin is made by the liver. And we already saw aldosterone is made by the supraadrenal glands here, aldosterone. Antidiuretic hormone that plays a huge role in retaining water, right? Antidiuretic hormone is made by the hypothalamus. We studied all this in the endocrine system. Atrial natriuretic peptide is made by the walls of your heart, the atrium. And renin is made by the juxtamedullary complex in the outside of the nephron, renin. So so here, through a series of reactions, angiotensin with the action of renin become angiotensin 2. With the action, another step, it becomes angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 will cause the arteries to constrict, and it will increase the cardiac output, thereby increasing blood pressure and volume. That can decrease the glomerular filtration rate, which will increase thirst. So they're trying to maintain the water content in blood. Another way is antidiuretic hormone. It's so interesting. How does it help with reabsorption of water in the nephron? See, it mediates insertion of a protein called aquaporin. The person who discovered this got a Nobel Prize. So aquaporin is a protein that makes water channel in the cell membrane, in the cells. So it mediates insertion of aquaporins in the nephron collecting cells. And as a result, more water is reabsorbed. It also increases sodium reabsorption. One thing to always remember is sodium, water will follow sodium. So if the body absorbs sodium, water will follow it. What does aldosterone do? So angiotensin 2 can trigger another hormone called aldosterone. This can cause the nephrons, distal tubes to reabsorb more sodium. And immediately you should think, if there is more sodium, water will follow it. So this system, all these hormones, along with epinephrine, norepinephrine, angiotensin, aldosterone, all of them will work together to maintain your blood pressure and blood volume. It's complicated. It's very complicated. All right, next organ would be the ureters. So here's a histology of the ureters. So the ureters are the tube that's going to collect the urine from the major calyx, minor calyx, major calyx, the renal pelvis, and then it decants into this tube here. So it travels from the kidneys to the bladder. There are three main layers that you can see. It has an internal mucosa, which is transitional epithelium. Remember the epithelium that will look different. So this is to accommodate changes in volume of urine. It has a middle muscular layer, so it is capable of peristalsis, which is a longitudinal circular band of smooth muscle. And then it has an outer connective tissue layer, which is rich in fibers, and it is protective and fibrous on the outside. So there are three layers of cells here. So peristaltic contractions will start at the renal pelvis, and it will sweep down the ureters, pushing the urine down into the bladder. So let's look at the bladder now. Interesting structure here. So the bladder is hollow. The muscle that makes the bladder is called as the detrusor muscle, and it is a reservoir. That means a storage area for urine. So the thing is, urination is under our control. There are two sphincters, so it is highly controlled. So only when you are ready, you can go to the bathroom. This also has a mucosa that lines, the inner lining is a mucosa, and it has a lot of rugae, just like how we saw in the stomach. So thereby, it can swell up like a balloon. That's why transitional epithelium. So as it fills up with urine, this can stretch and accommodate the urine. So rugae is there. This region here, this triangular funnel-like structure, is called as the trigone of the urinary bladder. So it has the two ureters, and the opening of the urethra. So there's a sphincter here, internal sphincter. So this is the trigone of the bladder. So the muscle is called detrusor muscle, rugae, trigone. So the external, this is the internal urethral sphincter, and then it becomes the ureters, and here's the external ureter sphincter. So this is a circular band of muscle tissue. It's a circular muscle, and it passes through the urogenital diaphragm. Urination is also called micturition. So what is a micturition reflex? So this is the coordinated and the peristaltic movement of the detrusor muscle and relaxation of the sphincters will actually lead to urination. So let's see how urination is controlled. Here's a picture. So what happens is, studded all along the detrusor muscle, there's lots of receptors here. Lots of receptors. So as the bladder fills up and stretches, these receptors will be triggered. The message will go to your spinal cord through the pelvic nerve here. So here's a synapses happening here around S2, S3 via the parasympathetic fibers of the pelvic nerve. And then it shoots up to the pons. So this is once it goes to the pons, the message is processed, and then it comes back, and then it will relax the external sphincter. When you are ready, you go to the bathroom. So this is the Micturition spinal reflex modulated by the central nervous system. So the steps are written here. Talking about the ureters, so this is the female reproductive system. It's a cross section, and you can see there are two separate pathways for the urine, and this is the vaginal canal. So here is the uterus and the ovaries, and then this is the vaginal canal. And anterior to it, you can see the bladder and a very short urethra. So this is the tube that connects the bladder to the outside of the body. It is only 4 centimeters in women, and about in males, it's about 20 centimeters. So here's the cross section of the reproductive system in males. And here you can see, so here's the bladder, and then you can see the prostate gland that is unique to males. And then we see the urethra. So in males, both urination and ejaculation, they both share the same tube, and it's very long. It can be up to 20 centimeters long. Whereas in females, the urethra is very short. So this is the reason why bacteria can enter the urethras and cause a UTI in females. It's more common in women. Whereas in males, as it comes up, the immune system will take care of it because it takes a long time. Here it is quick. It's a very interesting point to note. All right, urine analysis. So you would have done this in the lab had we been face to face. So you can study the physical characteristics of urine, like how much urine, what color it is, what odor it is. In olden times, they would smell urine or even taste urine to diagnose diabetes. So a specific gravity. And then there's a dipstick method. It's very easy. It's like you put the diagnostic paper, and depending on color change, you can tell if there's leukocytes in it. You can know the pH of your urine, if there's glucose, proteins, ketone bodies, bilirubin, blood, all of them you can test immediately. It's a very quick diagnostic tool. It's called dipstick method of urine analysis. And this is a very good chart that shows you if you're hydrated or dehydrated. See, I was like very surprised to see, even if it has a slight yellow tinge in it, you are dehydrated. So it has to be almost colorless or very pale. So this, you are hydrated. The number 1, you are hydrated. Even for number 2, it says drink more water. And all the other colors of yellows and greens and browns, it all leads to health risks. So this is the urine analysis. Urine kidney disorders are many. There's kidney cancer, kidney stones are very common, and polycystic kidneys. See, all of them, just imagine having any of those will affect the nephrons and the blood supply in the kidneys. And, they call it a kidney disease. So acute renal failure is sudden loss of kidney function. Slow renal failure can happen over time. It is not reversible. You can have cysts in your kidneys. Inability to control urination is called incontinence. Polycystic kidneys, the kidneys are enlarged. So there's like a whole range of kidney disorders. This shows how important diet is for kidney health. Hydration, drinking a lot of water, and cutting back on processed food that is loaded with chemicals, right? Anytime we eat foods rich in chemicals, they are going to be a strain on your kidneys. And over a period of time, they manifest as these problems here. So, what have we learned? We have learned the functional unit of nephron and how it can tweak blood plasma to make urine. And urine is getting rid of all the waste in your body. Very, very important. If your kidneys don't work, then you have to go into dialysis like 3-4 times a week. And then each section takes about 4 to 5 hours to clean your blood. So it's very serious. So eliminating metabolic waste is crucial for maintaining homeostasis. Then we studied all the different organs of the urinary system, like the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. And then we studied how the micturition reflex is controlled by both the spinal cord and your pons in your brain. And the kidneys will secrete hormones called renin and erythropoietin that will play a huge role in maintaining blood pressure and blood volume. I hope this helps.